not okay.
I'm retarded?
Oh shit. Here we go again.
You need to see a therapist.
Hello and welcome back to Wish for Death Island, Population Me, and I want to talk to you about something. There was this show. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called the Powerpuff Girls. It was pretty damn good. I grew up watching it. Really good cartoon. It had a lot of funny stuff like cartoons do, but you know, this one was kind of special because it had a lot of lessons that stuck with you. It's kind of like a more non-horrifying version of Courage the Cowardly Dog, which I also really enjoyed. Except this one had less of Return the Slab, though some episodes are pretty scary. I mean, the one where him talks about how they flew so far into the future that they abandoned everyone and everyone's like insane. That was pretty spooky. But you know, it was a good show because it didn't really push a horrible ideology. It was just there to teach kids about stuff and have a good time. Honestly, a lot of cartoons back then were like that. Do you remember Ed, Edd n Eddy? I like that one too. But, you know, we're living in an age where, well, firstly, we can't really get good reboots that much anymore because someone in Hollywood decided it would be fun to just make them shit. But we also live in an age where the CW is somehow still getting money. I'm telling you, you might think, oh well, Tara, you're the one who's doing it because you react to Batwoman so much. I use AdBlock and I also don't I yar-har-har the episodes. I don't actually, like, give them any money. So I don't know where it's coming from. We're talking about the live action reboot, and since the script leaked, now some people are saying the script is like a troll, and I'm hoping that it is because it's too bad to be real, at least I hope, but nevertheless I'm still gonna make fun of it. But the other thing is that they're apparently reworking the script after it leaked and they're copyright striking people for it. Here's how this is gonna work. I'm gonna show choice snippets very briefly on screen, like flashes anyway, so you can pause to read them, but I'm also going to summarize them and paraphrase them, so I'm not technically breaching anything, but I'm also describing it accurately, and I'm gonna walk you through the plot with my usual depressed attitude. And since it's a live action, it's been a while, but I figure we should also do live action too. Sorry that I look like shit and sleep deprived, it's just the usual.
Yeah, boy.
And I'm going to read it out on my phone here, so buckle up. So this starts with a description of the girls fighting a monster. It's kind of like your usual fare, but one of the big differences is that there's a lot of horrible dialogue and narration, to the point where it just feels like I'm watching some fan fiction written by someone who doesn't actually know what the Powerpuff Girls is. And one of the things is that Buttercup, who is my favorite, and the reason why I like tomboys and muscle girls to this day, is called a hard ass by the narrator, who is terrible and is nothing like the old one. Do you remember how they used to do some of those meta jokes where the narrator used to be kidnapped or like attacked or something and they used to acknowledge that he exists and it was like a funny thing? They don't know how to do that this time, but it's the CW, so none of you are surprised. All of the dialogue, both from the narrator, the girls, basically everyone involved, is like the hello fellow kids thing. It's just personified, it's terrible. They also recognize that they're going to be filmed for TV, which is something that I think the original didn't do that much, and I'm not like close to the idea, but I think that any show other than this would have done it better. So it goes back to the professor talking about their origin. One of the things that I liked about the original professor is that he wasn't intending to make the girls into superheroes. He was just fucking around, and he became this sort of goofy dad who had a very good heart, and he was trying to juggle taking care of kids with superpowers and just doing science stuff. He was meant to be a good dad, and he really only cared about the safety of the girls. So when something happened to him, it was really jarring because the whole thing about the professor was that he was their sanctuary, he was their safety, he represented everything about them that they could be comfortable with, and as soon as that was taken away from them, they felt lost. But this one, his name is Drake. Secondly, he was trying to make superpowered girls on purpose, and the next thing that you'll find throughout the entire script is that he constantly focuses on them getting some TV shows and things for him. So he really doesn't care about them, he just cares about what they can do for him, because this is the CW and good dads cannot exist. None of them. And if they try to exist, they will just get treated like shit by all the other characters. The lab assistant, who is human by the way, is named Mojo, and he has a son named Jojo.
Oh shit. here we go again.
And he's human. I don't really know why, but he has a pet monkey. So the cool badass monkey villain from the original is no longer a thing. At least for now. My laptop is making death noises again. So the professor watches the girls fight a monster and he screams girl power because that's the kind of person he is. And the Mojo guy is jealous because he's not getting any of the attention anymore. I guess he has like a complex of some kind. They also go on about how Mojo wanted to be better than the girls because he was jealous of them. So he hated himself and he hated them because he was a man, and man is written in bold, by the way. So he goes on TV to spread rumors about them as if, you know, he's any member of the mainstream media nowadays, and he stopped working with them. The professor also has dialogue as if he's a fucking robot because I guess no man is allowed to have a good personality in any of the CW shows, besides the manlet boyfriend of Blossom that we'll get to in a second. So the narrator states ominously that the girls got defeated by puberty, so it cuts to them as teenagers where their dad, Drake, I'm not calling him the professor because I don't recognize him as the original professor character, he's just weird Drake bootleg, so I'm just gonna call him that. So he forces the teen girls to walk out wearing their children uniforms, which is already sus. Bubbles doesn't want to wear pigtails anymore, and they're all having like teenager episodes, so he gets really pissy at them and they're just not having a good time. He also limits the number of friends and school activities that she can do, and he has a very rigorous routine for her because he really doesn't care about his children. His girlfriend, who is Cerebellum by the way, and is like completely removed from everything that made Cerebellum likable, because the mayor's assistant is someone else entirely called Gina, who I don't care about. She goes on about how it must be sucky for the girls to get up at the quote-unquote butt crack of dawn, and she basically gets told to stop talking because he doesn't listen to her. So they're setting up the professor basically getting the Jacob from Batwoman treatment, as I like to call it, or the watch you bring me treatment, but he's gonna be treated like a shithead. So Mojo, who is human, reminder, and his monkey sidekick and his child, Jojo, not the good kind of JoJo. They all have a thing for Bubbles for some reason. They all like her especially, and they have merchandise of her, which is really creepy. He is responsible for some protesters who hate the girls. In the script, even the stage directions are written badly, like when the girls are about to go and fight something, the protesters show up. The script calls one of the protesters a jackass who throws some Slurpee at Buttercup. So even in the script, it's written like some teenager's diary, and Buttercup says, "I will honestly end you," because she talks like that. So they accidentally murder Mojo while he's in this massive mech thing, and then they get so shocked at the fact that they've actually murdered someone because the girls didn't do that in the original cartoon, so haha, subverting your expectations. Blossom immediately has a panic attack, one of many that she will have in every single scene that she's in. As a leader, you're supposed to be emotionally weak and not able to lead the team. That's a good quality. Though judging by the amount of woke pandering that the US military is doing these days, I think that they actually took that unironically. So after all of this, Blossom just decides to run away, so she packs her things and leaves. Then Buttercup says bleep at the cameras that show up at the house a lot, and she leaves as well and says that the Powerpuff Girls are done. And this is the end of the 7-page teaser. Oh, you might be thinking that's a short script. No, it's not. The actual script is 56 pages long, and that was just 7 pages of it, so we're still gonna keep going. I hate my life. You know, it's kind of funny to me how these like girl power things work, because if you look at the Cruella movie, which I didn't even know was a thing, and I'm gonna continue to not care about as a thing after I finish talking about it, the whole premise is that they're trying to give her like a backstory to why she wants to use puppy skin to make clothing. And apparently the backstory is that some dogs killed her mother. So now she hates dogs, and I guess that gives her an excuse to murder dogs and use their skin as clothing. And I remember seeing some Twitter threads about how this film is not made for men, so men can't criticize it. And it's funny because it's like, this woman kills puppies, and you're trying to make it out like she's some sort of icon for women and it's a women movie when she kills puppies. And then you're gonna have some bitch on Twitter who's gonna make a thread about how she's not actually evil and it's like a man's fault that she killed puppies, so she's not at fault or something. That always happens. Even in shows like this, you have like the bad dad and everyone's like, haha, the dad sucks, but then if it was a bad mom, they'd make excuses for why she was bad at the results of a man's hands. It's like women just can't take responsibility, and then the men just have to, by default, fault. It's like, you want a movie about a woman. Wow, she does some bad things. That's not actually her fault, but you should make the movie anyway and bar men from criticizing it. What's that? You want to make a movie called The Joker? No, that's a bad idea because that's a white man, so it's a bad thing. Someone's totally gonna shoot up a theater and prove this is a bad movie. I know it's gonna happen and I'm gonna report about it as soon as it happens. It's totally gonna happen. Anyway, let's go on to Act 1. So the girls had started their lives anonymously anew, and they had picked nicknames so that people didn't know who they are. So Blossom works in some biotech company because of course, and Buttercup is a firefighter named Bee, who is apparently trying to keep her powers a secret, yet when she saves a child, she flies instead of using a ladder, and then she tells the child not to tell anyone. So it's like, do you want it to keep a secret or not? Bubbles had decided to become a star and capitalize on who she was, but she immediately fails. She goes to sell much of herself, and she apparently has some porn star history because she's desperate for fame, and she starts talking about a Wonder Woman cosplayer because she doesn't like the cosplayer, and even the script calls the cosplayer really fake. Again, it sounds like a teenager wrote this. Blossom attended a women's college and worked at a firm at a biotech company, like I said. She has a quote-unquote adorable, read man-child, boyfriend, and she decides that she hates Townsville, but she has to go to Townsville because she has a thing that she needs to do with her sisters, and she also has been dealing with a lot of trauma because it's everyone else's fault that she killed Mojo by accident, and she has panic attacks all the time, and she's literally shaking, you guys. So Jojo, the son of Mojo, got elected mayor, and he goes on about his really shitty campaign jokes. Like, the entire thing is just memes that aged poorly. There's Harambe that's referenced because of course it is years later when it's not funny anymore. The only thing I didn't deliver on is free gelato Fridays, and that's because the place was a front for meth, and then uses that immediately to bring up white men and reverse discrimination, which isn't a thing. It's just discrimination because white men are humans too. But he's like, oh, you always hear about reverse discrimination, but that doesn't actually happen. It's like, yeah, because it's not real, because you're an asshole and you don't. So he also goes on about virtue signaling, and he virtue signaled before, but now he continues to talk about the virtue signaling. I don't know what his angle is, because it's like he's half evil, and they try to make him out to be half evil, because it's like, oh, he's talking about virtue signaling and all that crap, but then he's actually trying to like defame the Powerpuff Girls or whatever, but then they also make him out to be like, oh, even he hates white men. See, even the villain hates white men. Like, I'm confused. It's like that one part of that Batwoman episode from season 2 where she asks the guy what his pronouns are when he's set up to be like a semi-bad guy, and it's like, even the bad guy cares about pronouns. It's like, is he not that bad then? So the papers show up and they ask him about what he thinks about the girls returning to Townsville, and he says that he doesn't want to comment on it. And there's this like setup for him having a dastardly plan. So Bubbles brings a cameraman to the house, and she wants to film their reunion for her documentary about herself. So everything that was innocent and cool about Bubbles is just flipped on its head, because I can imagine I was saying this in the Discord server, that they just took Bubbles and they were like giggling to themselves like, haha, she was an innocent character, but now she's not anymore, haha, so cool. Blossom is only coming because the professor made it mandatory that they had to come to get their trust funds from him in person, and he doesn't really care about them. Bubbles is very happy about this horrible amount of press, even though it's actively dismaying and even traumatizing her sisters. She really doesn't care. So they do some more horrible trendy dialogue that I don't even want to say, because it just makes me feel like the lack of soul that I have is just depleting. So they meet some small girl who calls them feminist icons, and they brush away a caterpillar from her shoulder, and it was her pet, so she gets mad at them because they actually accidentally killed her pet or something, and then she fucks off, so that was cool. They go inside and they're concerned about coming back here because it's triggering for Blossom. Like, every single scene, Blossom has a breakdown. She starts crying. It's just insane. The professor, who again seems like he doesn't care about them, says that there's darkness coming because people don't have internet access on a road in Townsville, so therefore there's an evil lab there sucking up the internet or something. Then Blossom has another panic attack because she's literally shaking and she got triggered, and then she passes out. So the tiny girl that showed up at their doorstep reveals that she's actually evil. The caterpillar was a robot and she takes control of the neighbor's brain because ear canals aren't a thing. Like, it just goes into his ear and then directly into his brain in like a second. I'm not even gonna try because it clearly doesn't make sense, but we know that it wouldn't make sense and the entire episode is about this. So I don't care, I give up. Like, if you want to talk about how it doesn't make sense, feel free, but I'm too tired. So Act 2. The girls wake up Blossom by screech singing Breakaway by Kelly Clarkson of all things, and that's a recurring joke. So they make a big deal out of the song, and Professor is downstairs spilling yogurt on himself and dancing around in front of a PowerPoint presentation. So he accidentally shows them a picture of a kitten on his phone instead of showing them his evidence picture of paranormal happenings because he's incompetent and a bad father. So people's internet are cutting out, therefore evil happens. I mean, don't get me wrong, when internet gets cut out, I don't feel too good about that because I like the internet being a thing. When I first moved to this house, the internet was out for like 2 weeks before it had to get put in properly, and it was kind of boring, but I mean, I read more than I usually do and I managed to write a decent bit, so it, like, you just find things to do and then it gets fixed. So he's more obsessed with the TV ratings than their fucking health because we know it's a joke. There's also this joke about Buttercup being a slut because she's bisexual, and also a joke about Bubbles doing porn. I notice a lot of stuff in these SJW things about these like bisexual characters showing their bisexuality through being sluts, and listen, okay, my sexuality isn't something that I want to bring up a lot, and I don't think that it defines me outwardly or even in my personality because it's just a thing that doesn't really matter, but I feel like I keep bringing it up when I talk about these because they keep bringing it up, and then it keeps forcing me to like talk about it because I hate the way that they portray bisexuals. I got mad at it in Batwoman with Sophie, Black Lightning, and I'm getting mad at it here as well because it's like, I hate the thing about like, oh, you're bisexual, you must be a slut. And there's also this other thing where this group of Twitter people is like, say that you have privilege if you're bisexual because if you choose to fall in love with someone from the opposite gender, you're clearly straight passing and it gives you straight privilege, and I'm really confused. That's why, like, as a bisexual, I just really don't want to go near that community, like the alphabet community. I want to steer clear of them as much as possible because they make you feel like shit if you don't become a caricature, and I'd rather not become that myself. So they can take their reboots and they can take the CW and they can just leave it over there because I'm not interested. So they go on about how they faced misogyny in this town and Buttercup was sick of pretending to be straight. The boy version of them, I think you'll recognize them, they show up for like 5 seconds in the flashback and only to talk about how much they suck. It immediately ruins more of that. And then Buttercup says that she's here to just drink and fuck people because she's a slut because she's bisexual. So the neighbor who has glowing eyes because you can't make your robot control more obvious than that, shows up at the bar and tries to grab Bubbles because of that weird fixation that they have on Bubbles. So they fight him off and go on about how he was a pervert. Blossom brings up that they have glowing eyes and the girls are just like, what? And she goes, why are you coming at me? As a response, and I hate it. So they identify some weird evil lab crap, but it's actually a joke. They don't actually care about the evil lab, but it cuts to the girl who's working for Jojo, and his plan is to mind control the girls, make them evil, and then he saves the day, so he has like propaganda against the girls. That's his entire plan. He wants them to try and murder some orphans so that he can save the day. Oh yeah, I also forgot, during the bar scene, Buttercup and Bubbles openly talk about how the professor would have sex. Like they're just imagining him having sex. I don't get this whole thing about families. Maybe I'm just too formal with my idea of familial respect, but like I would never call my parents by their first names in a derogatory manner. I can't even imagine doing that. That's just so disrespectful. Like even if you had fights with your parents, just doing that seems like really shitty. You shouldn't do that. Like if you have like a casual thing where you like with your family where that's okay, that's fine, but just doing it out of disrespect just seems like such a horrible thing to do. Also, I do not want to imagine any one of my family members in any of that sort of sexual undertone because human beings are human beings, they have their own lives, but that doesn't mean that I want to even think about my family members in that sort of situation. That just seems so disrespectful and gross. Like, am I being too formal with my idea of disrespect towards family? Because I'm really big into like family tradition and culture in my own personal life, like being South African Indian and like keeping up with those things even though I live in Australia. Like, that's like a whole big respect thing for me personally, and I know that that's not for everyone, but I do think that the name thing is so disrespectful. Anyway, Act 3. They continue to talk about the professor's evil lab theories, and Blossom walks out because she once again gets literally shaking triggered and has to leave. The professor then very shallowly says that he regrets how his family is so fractured, and they talk about Buttercup being a slut and Blossom being a slut as well, because they just love that. They're very sexual about their dad as well, to the point where they walk in on Buttercup with her the woman that she took from the bar, and she's having sex with that woman in the house, and the dad, Drake, and the sisters just walk in and they're like, haha, they're having sex. And they like, imagine walking in on a family member having sex with someone. That is horrible. So Blossom goes on to talk shit about the Drake person with Cerebellum, because Cerebellum broke up with him because he's a piece of shit, but she goes on to say that he does have a good heart, he's just like shitty. So then the girls see the weird child with the robot stuff out the window, and they don't suspect her because she's a child. So then she just goes away. Then Bubbles, who has this whole time been making very terrible, like outdated comments about stuff, goes on about how she's gonna go solo as an investigator, as she puts it, Timberlake solo. So they all start seeing the robot creatures crawling around, so it's like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? Blossom then returns and chews the dad out and cuts him off because he's a fucking one-dimensional character and he can't really respond to her. So after that, the robot climbs onto the girlfriend of Buttercup, who's still lying in bed. Apparently they had sex 6 times, and she turns into an angry robot lady because she got possessed by the robot through her ear canal. Then they fight each other and get the robot out of her ear canal somehow. Then Bubbles gets super drunk and gets arrested for some reason. It's never brought up again. Blossoms, who is in biotech, remember, she's a smart science woman, says that she thinks that this is controlling people through their ear canal and instantly solves what the problem is, and they figure out that to get the thing out of your ear you need to have shock to neutralize it or something, and they find out that the small child and Jojo have started riots all over Townsville because they can't get control of the girls. They just got control of literally everyone else in the entire city, including Drake, and they're making them have like a big riot, like a Portland riot. Sorry. And the professor is being blamed for it because they mind controlled him and made him stand at the top of a building and start, like, I don't know, T-posing and saying the N-word to everyone. So they go on to save everyone by neutralizing the thing and make juggalo references. Fucking magnets, how do they work? Fucking mind control devices, how do they work? I don't want to talk to a scientist. The evil child talks to Jojo about their dastardly plans, as if this is like wacky races or something. He wants the professor to be killed in front of the girls like his father was killed in front of him. But this doesn't happen because they save him immediately. They also bring up misogyny, again, for no reason, and decide to go and stay in Townsville. So the thing that they use to neutralize everyone is just spraying them with water to get the weird robots out, and the girl confronts them all, and there's like a cliffhanger of sorts until we get to Act 6 and it's resolved immediately. So they save the professor, and the thing that I hate about the CW shows is that there's no emotion. Like, even if someone dies in front of you, there's still like the I'm a girl boss sort of sassiness to it, so nothing's taken seriously. You have this very fractured, broken relationship, and these people who are going through a lot, and even someone who has a fucking panic attack, she doesn't really seem to have emotions. She just has the panic attack and then she comes back and snarks immediately, as if there's no actual familial bond. They're just pretending that there is one because they don't actually feel. They don't take anything seriously, so all they can do is make unfunny jokes instead of like actually showing that they care. That's why I hate it, because someone could be mourning the loss of someone. Like in the Batwoman review that I have coming up, Kate is confirmed to be dead, even though later on she's not dead. But they all start crying and then immediately they snark afterwards, and it's like, did you care about her or not? What's the deal here? They clearly don't really care about each other in this pilot script. even if it gets reworked, the problem wouldn't be solved because the CW just writes like that, so it's just gonna be just as bad as this script. So we finally get to the last act, which is Jojo turns up to the Powerpuff Girls' house and tries to be nice to them and apologizes about bad blood and everything. Him and Blossom have an exchange and Blossom feels drawn to him and has a moment. So people in the Discord server were joking about Powerpuff Girls fucking the monkey, and I think it's actually kind of close to it. Anyway, so it cuts to later. He had given them a little piece of merchandise. He had a Bubbles figurine, then he was like, I hung on to this since I was a kid, you should have it. They just accepted from him and they put it in their room, and he has cameras inside them, so he's watching them like North Korea style in the last section of the script. He's saying that he's gonna get his revenge. He's full on doing like the Austin Powers stereotype joke thing where he has like the evil chair with his sidekick monkey or whatever, and he's like talking about his evil plans while watching them. That's actually how this thing ends. Are you fucking serious? So I'm gonna go back to the voiceover version of this for now. There's something that I wanted to talk about. Ultimately, after all of the jokes and the stupid writing, however the show turns out, we know it's gonna be bad, but if these writers had actually grown up watching the show like we did, I don't think they would have turned out to be the bitter people that they are today. And really, that's all there is to it. See you in the next video.